welcome everybody, to those of you that are on the call and to those of you who will be joining us later. I know that you're going to love hearing from Glenn, and all I know I always do. I always enjoy, whether it's sitting across from him at a dinner table or he and his wife, or whether it's, listening to him talk about his latest passions. It's something that I know everyone is going to enjoy. So we're going to go ahead. I know he's got a jam-packed program and we want to leave lots of times for questions. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off, Glenn, to say welcome. I know it's rough over there in Kauai. I know the weather is probably so beautiful, you just can't stand it every day. But I know it's in the middle of the afternoon. So thank you for tearing yourself away from that gorgeous ocean behind you and the beautiful weather to join us. Can you just share a little bit about your background with us and kind of how you ended up here? Where, what was it in your life that kind of felt that you feel kind of brought you to where you are today?
All right. Well, thank you, Brenda and Cindy, for your kind words. And we have traveled the world together, and it's been a great life. I'll go back. I grew up in Richardson, Texas, not very far from Denton, and went to Texas A&M, got a couple of degrees down there, and went into the U.S. Air Force. And while I was in the Air Force, I learned a lot about being on teams. So my first assignment was on this little manpower management team at an Air Force base in North Carolina. And we had the responsibility to look at the manpower requirements for every work center on that Air Force base. And this team I was on, there were six enlisted folks and 3 officers. So just a small group of 9 guys, maybe 1 woman, I think. And we were looking at everything from the commander of the base to the cooks in the mess halls, and looking at the different work centers. And I learned so much about how, in this case, a small community works, an Air Force base. They just have every kind of job you can think of, on that base. At the end of the year, our team, out of 300 Air Force bases across the world, our team was the #1 base, the top ranked team in the Air Force. And because we did so well, I got moved to another team, and this one was in Colorado, Lowry Air Force Base in Denver. And I got to spend some time with a group of people there that were building the first computer-based training system for the U.S. Air Force. And in 1976, 77, 78, we didn't really know what that meant. Looking at the answer in the question, can a computer teach? And our team was about figuring that out for the Air Force. We did that, and I left in 1979 and started my first company to begin to take that instructional technology to Fortune 10 companies across the United States. And for the next 11 years, that's what I did. And then I guess I'm kind of ADD around teams. I just see people I like to work with in all sorts of environments. And I ended up co-founding or being on the boards of something like 29 different businesses and nonprofit organizations up until today.
Wow.
Some teams created the first interactive video disc training for the banking industry, the first shopping mall computer touchscreen kiosk, and then we had another team that worked in the snowboard industry. So, it was just a lot of fun. And there's more detail about this. It's going to be in the blog that you can go to and take a look at. But it just really began to embed in my body really the importance of collaboration, teamwork, and it just can't be all about me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you've always been kind of on that leading edge, whether it be, bringing out computers to teach before they were actually, even accepted in many ways. So, and I assume that's where you met your beautiful bride.
That's where I met Marion at a conference in Montreal, Canada. And really, it was really fortuitous that that I met her, and then I was smart enough to invite her to join my consulting team, and she agreed and did that, and a few years later we got married, and we've been life partners ever since.
Well,
One of
yes.
the things we, yeah, one I want to say one of the things we both did was take this workshop that was built on the work of Buckminster Fuller, and a lot of people don't know Bucky today, but in his lifetime, he coined the term spaceship Earth, and really was instrumental for Marion and I to really begin to embody the idea of collaborative thinking for the good of the whole. Our planet's our home, and we've all got a responsibility to jump in and do something. So,
and the two of you, I believe, have partnered together in business and work really well together, collaborate really well together, I would say.
oh yeah, we're awesome. We're an awesome team, and she gets a little frustrated sometimes at some of my crazy ideas, but she's a great supporter for me, and I love working with her, and she gets stuff done. So,
well, and you've had a varied career with lots of interesting aspects, from both military to building businesses, and then of course building businesses with Marion. Can you share a bit about your perspective on how these different experiences now have shaped where you are, where that current passion that we're going to be talking about tonight? What is it? Is it that leading edge? Is it that good for the whole? What is it that you bringing into your future, coming from the past? What's spurring you on?
oh, thanks, Brenda. There's a couple of questions that have come into my life over the last number of years, and one that I want to highlight is the question, "What's mine to do?" And I would invite all of us to ask ourselves that question every now and then. What's mine to do? And then another question that kind of goes along with that is, how bold can I be? And then, hey, how is that bold enough? So looking at my life of, I'm 72 years old now, and I feel like I'm just beginning to kind of learn a little bit about collaborating and what's important, and how is it we can work together for the good of the whole. And I'm really beginning to apply that to what I see as the next evolution of capitalism, a business, moving from the sole purpose of a corporation is to enrich investors and shareholders. And how do we move that to the next expression that I see is really about nonprofit capitalism, where business exists to enrich our communities. And so looking at just how do we do that? What does that mean to do, to talk about nonprofit capitalism? And, we've got RegenrusCares, which has stepped into the void of a benefit corporation, which is really taken into account, social commitment, social impact. And in RegenrusCares' case, taking a piece of your gross income, even before profits, and committing that to the community and giving back in a way that again serves the good of the whole. So we're making some really good progress, and it's like, okay, what comes after that? And how much further can we push this business model to again add value for our communities and just serve the greater good?
Well, thank you. We're actually really proud of the work that we've all been able to do together with your leadership as part of our founding leaders. So thank you for acknowledging what RegenrusCares is doing. But I think that people here want to hear about your current project, about what it is that you're doing over there, and the Ohana Legacy Foundation. Tell us a little bit about that. And I think you also even have a video to share with us. So just go ahead and take it away, and let's talk Ohana Legacy Foundation. I know everyone's really excited about hearing about it.
Well, the Ohana Legacy Foundation is really a response to a problem, and it's becoming so much more than that. But here on Kauai, we have a serious problem around affordable housing. And we have in island communities that now I notice really across the world, but across the Hawaiian Islands for sure, we have kind of two economies. One is based upon tourism, and then there's the people that live on the island that support tourism. And so last month on the island of Kauai, our median household income was $1,100,000.
Wow.
Wow.
And the median that was the median home price, and the median income for an individual who lives on our island is about $33,000.
That's a disconnect.
It's a huge disconnect for our what we call our Ohana. Our Ohana is our expanded community, our expanded family that we share and care about. And so beginning to look at what can I do about that? And so I began to talk to people and assemble people said, wow, that's interesting. What can we do? And so it's about really bringing together some smart people, and we've got about 30 folks, I guess, on our team so far. But looking at it from a standpoint of what do we do to address and create permanently affordable housing for the workers on our island, for our residents, that can really make a difference for them. So we begin to just explore the nature of this problem. And so if you think about affordable housing, or think about your home as a place, where you live, or maybe it's a commercial space where your business rents space. And so if you take a look at that and you think about how did this start? And so I've visualized the land that it's on when it was vacant and empty, and somebody bought that land, and the one who sold it probably made a profit, that contributed to the cost of that land. Then a developer comes along and decides to buy that piece of property and they build a home on it. And they have a dream that they can sell it at a profit, and they do. But in this phase of the developer, they hire a number of companies, like an architecture company that start developing the plans. And you pay the architect a good salary, but the company itself makes a profit on top of that salary. And you hire a surveying company and a plumbing company and an electrical company and so on. And these separate profit centers, while they pay their employees pretty well, they also tack on 10 to 20% profit overhead on top of their costs. So I begin to look at all of the different profit centers that are embedded in the cost of building a home or building a commercial property. And at the end of the day, when you buy that house, they tack on another 5 to 7% for the real estate fee at the end. And so beginning to look at this examination of our current housing model and the way we build stuff, and the way we've been doing it for 50 years, 100 years, we've got all these profit centers. And when I begin to talk with contractors, they started thinking about this, and what they've told me is that if we could remove some of these profit margins from the housing construction process, we could probably reduce the cost of a home as much as 50%. Well, that's a big number when you think about, any home that you were going to go buy in Texas or on our island or anyplace else. If the cost of that home was 50% less than what you're currently looking at in terms of market value, well, that's a lot. And so we begin to look at how we could do that. And so what emerged was the idea of a nonprofit foundation really taking on the role of a construction company. And how could we visualize that? How could we look at making that happen from the beginning to a home that you move into? And in our island, we have people doubling up, tripling up in order to pay the rent or pay the mortgage. And, you know, we're really in this spiral to houselessness. And if we don't figure out some other way to deal with the construction and building process, you know, we're all in trouble. And that's what we really begin to recognize. And then you tack on this whole climate change thing that's going on, and we have a tree-based construction model. You know, you use lumber, 2x4s and 4x4s in your home. And there's this new thing that we're remembering or finding out called hemp. And looking at how the hemp plant, the industrialization of hemp, to take that plant and use those fibers to turn them into construction materials. And now suddenly you've got a whole thing that looks like seed to house. And we've got a few companies around the world that are developing construction materials based on the hemp plant. Well, out here in Hawaii, you know, we grow hemp grows like, gosh, we can grow 3 crops a year here. So we could be one of the largest hemp producing areas in the world. And looking at how can we grow hemp, process it, turn it into construction material, and use it in housing. Then comes along 3D printing and looking at how it is this 3D printing technology, which is now making its way into the housing and commercial building construction area. They tell us in the 3D printing world that they can print a house, you know, a 2,000 square foot house in as little as 48 hours of printing time.
Wow.
For less than $10,000. And it's like, really? So we've got some technology and some processes and things to think about in our mind about, wow, what is it we can do to make this work for our families and our children that can make a difference. So here comes Ohana Legacy Foundation. Again, thinking about all this, bringing people together and talking about it, and people saying, wow, what if we did this? And what if we did that? And our goal now in Kauai is we want to build over 1,000 homes in the next 5 years using 3D printing technology and these hemp-based construction materials as much as we can. And by keeping those in the Ohana Legacy Foundation, either as rental units or possibly selling those as permanently affordable homes. So there are deed restrictions where people can't just resell it at market rate. We think we can begin to transform housing and the way people live in a way that just leaves a lot more money in everybody's pocket at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And so
absolutely.
that's kind of what we're doing, you know, it's collective wisdom. And, you know, we need to raise money to do this. We need $250,000 to bring a printer to our island. And we're working on that. But, you know, nobody else is coming to figure this out for us. This is not a project that the existing construction companies are very interested in because it changes their paradigm. So we really do love the idea of what Mr. Fuller kind of leading our parade here and talking about, don't fight the existing system, develop a new one that's more attractive and more interesting. And it's not for everybody, but it certainly is for some of us that can figure this out and make a difference.
Well, you know, I know there's probably, and I know there'll be lots of questions. You were going to share a video because I'm sure there's folks on this call that are like, what does a printed house look like? Because I mean, I'm imagining when you're a kid and you're building those little paper houses, and I'm sure that's not at all what it looks like. But can you share a little bit about, you know, the process, or what have you seen it done, or what does that look like when it's printing?
I'm going to share just a little bit of a video here. You can see here is you can see this wall here, and there you can see a printer. And what that guy's doing is he's laying down a thin layer of a concrete formulation that is very rapidly setting, dries very rapidly, and does it in a very rapid way. So a mason can come behind that printer and you can see the way the wall looks as the printer leaves it. But a mason could come behind that and trowel on some material and add an artistic expression to how this wall looks. But this particular wall that's being built here is a form of concrete. So it's mold proof, termite proof, fire proof, and can withstand hurricane force winds. And it can be built for less than $50 a square foot.
Wow.
And done very quickly in a matter of days instead of the many months that it takes to to build a traditional home. So you've got a huge differentiation in the labor required. And of course, we've got so much home building going on across the United States. It's hard to find a contractor. It's hard to find laborers that want to work in this in the same way that that we have. And so here we're reinventing the role of the mason, who normally does bricks and concrete, but here learning to operate a machine. They can build so many more homes, so we can employ more masons and less carpenters, as you can see. So that's
Wow.
just one example of how this looks. And if you were to go to this company called Apis-Core, as you can see up in the corner there, it's apis-core.com is their website, I believe. And you can look through their various videos. But we also have these on our Ohana Legacy Foundation website at ohanalegacy.org, where you can go to our gallery. And we've got half a dozen videos there where you can educate yourself on this technology and just see what's going on. And this is what's happening. So
And as when you and I were talking earlier, and you shared this with me, I know you had made the comment, you're like, you don't see any people there. I mean, what is it? Just a couple people sitting behind a big printer running the machine? It's, that you didn't really see anybody.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a couple of people that operate the machine. And this particular machine is on tracks. So you actually drive it around the website, and it's tied to a mixer that mixes up the sand and the concrete and the additives, the polymers that go into it to give it its additional strength. And away it goes. And we're looking at here putting in some different additives to it that are not there yet. But for instance, we're experimenting with hemp powder as a place to sequester hemp. The hemp plant is a great carbon sequestration mechanism. And so to take this concrete formulation and put in hemp powder along with it as a place to park the hemp for hundreds of years. Also, we're experimenting and looking at basalt. Basalt as a replacement for steel rebar. You may know that concrete has a problem when it gets to be 75 to 100 years old called spalling. It's because it rusts. And I think we got concrete in the construction process back in the late 1800s, early 1900s with a guy called Andrew Carnegie and Carnegie Steel. There's a basalt substitute. If you do a Google search on basalt rebar, you'll find a product that'll last 1,000 years.
Wow.
That is stronger than steel and lighter by a half or more. And so we've got some basalt rebar samples here on the island that I see on the call is Chris St. Clair. He's our amazing draftsman for our projects. And Chris got some of this basalt rebar. And we've got a lot of things to learn and study on how we need to build housing here that, again, will withstand 150-mile-an-hour wind loads, on the new hurricanes and the strengthening storms that come our way. And that's not just a problem on Hawaii. That's all island nations across the world, and certainly in places like Florida and Louisiana and Texas, that, we need a whole strengthening and a reimagination of housing that really can be sustainable and last for a long time. And that's what we're looking at here.
But I know I've still got a million questions, but I'm going to open it up to the group, so I'm not going to steal all of it. I'm sure they have very similar questions as to the ones I have.
What will you do with ductwork and cables and all the different utilities? Will you be using drywall, or will there be a different solution?
Different solution. We're actually looking at a hemp replacement for drywall.
Cool.
Like a hemp paneling kind of a thing. Additionally, though, when the concrete mixture is soft, it's easy to cut in a hole and put in an electrical fixture, an electrical box. And these walls can be hollow. You can run cable and that sort of thing behind the wall.
Right.
Or in some cases, you might want a more industrial look and actually run the cabling on the exterior of the wall. And maybe paint it to match whatever the painting product is. But this industrial look is become more popular in a lot of buildings today as well, even especially in commercial buildings, to just run it along the concrete and attach it therein.
Yeah, I was curious. You may have mentioned this, Glenn. I may have missed it. About how many square feet are the homes?
The ones that we've actually, I didn't mention this particular piece, but we actually have a project right now with 11 homes. Wow. We're doing the site design right now. Chris has just completed the site design for this 11 lots. 11 homes. Each home will be probably an average of around 11 to 1,200 square feet. In
nice
size.
thought. Yeah.
So yeah. So we just got approval for our water meters for that project just last week, and so that project needs to break ground and start going up probably in the June, July, August time period around here. So.
Nice. Yeah, it's a fascinating concept, really. I mean, I love the video. That was amazing.
Yeah, and you can certainly see more of that in more complete videos and different 3D printing companies in the gallery section of our website.
Right.
I've got a member of our team has been tracking about 15 different companies that are around the world, so that we can really, cherry pick the best technology for the projects that we take on here. So,
sure.
So we're looking at solar gardens. Actually, as we can do a little cluster of homes, we could put all the solar panels and collectively bundle those together, so they're not even spread across different houses, but they could be in a central site, and the homes in the project could draw from that single spot for sure. But and also, of course, the battery technology is improving very rapidly. And so combine solar with batteries, and then you talk about water catchment, and they're creating cisterns. Or here on Kauai, we have the rainiest place in the world here. So we're always, we've got a lot of water on our island particularly, but that's not the case in many places in the world for sure. And also different ways of handling sewage. So we're looking at anaerobic systems, as well as traditional septic and that sort of thing. But anaerobic gives us some good potential as well. So really looking at every technology we can dream up to make our homes as not just sustainable, but regenerative. So this word regenerative is really important in our construction vocabulary now. And carbon sequestration is totally important, and looking at how many ways can we be carbon positive. That is, we can contribute to this whole carbon negative, carbon positive, but the idea that we sequester as much carbon as possible in our construction process, but in the way that we live in these buildings, in these shelters, is in a positive way to support our climate and our planet.
The question I had though is when you do have this first 11, who would be the type of people you would be looking for to live in these houses? Is it, so is it a lottery? I mean, it's going to be a lot of people that are going to go, I want to be first. So, and maybe
Great question.
First.
Great question. It turns out these first 11 are going to be between two organizations. One is called Habitat for Humanity. And Habitat on our island alone has a waiting list of over 3,000 families.
Wow.
Looking for housing. And so Habitat is going to allocate about, I think, 6 or 7 of the 11. And then the remaining ones are going to be marketed by a company called PAL. It's a nonprofit called Permanently Affordable Living, PAL Kauai. And they are going to sell those homes to people with deed restrictions. So they'll be sold at affordable housing prices, that is, within a certain percentage of area median income, people that will qualify for these. And they'll come with a deed restriction that will allow only a certain amount of equity growth per year that they own the home. So it's an interesting model, the way this will, and we'll see how this unfolds. Here we go.
Christopher is sharing.
There we go.
Wow, look at that.
Wow. So that's,
Those are the homes.
oh, wow, they look
Those are
really good.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So
And now
these are just initial renderings
No, I get that.
put together.
And
And
really
you kind of
good
get the
looking.
idea.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
we're working things here. We got stuff going on, and now we're just moving into place now of expanding those floor plans, and then we'll be able to model some costing data, and looking at variations between, for instance, steel rebar versus basalt rebar, and what those cost differentials are. And we're looking at maybe foundations where if the owner wanted to down the road, they could pop the top and put in the second floor, but the foundation
wow.
would already be strong enough to support that from the get-go.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's a small added expense, in the initial construction time. So, things, we're just looking at how regenerative and sustainable can we be?
First of all, thank you for the time and thank those of you that are on the calls with us. And I thank those of you who are going to listen in a later time. I know you're probably going to have a lot of questions for Glenn as well, but we will be putting out this call in a recording form on our YouTube channel, as well as sharing it on our social media.